My name is Ken Amondi. I am an advocate with a keen interest in matters governance. My topic today shall be in respect of various documents that are written. Basically, there are 7 treatises, and I want to expound on the 7th treatise. The question for the discussion today, as phrased in the treatise, is the 2,300 delegates of the Communist Party of China, that is the CPC, decide the world direction. Which way are political parties? Essentially, the object of this discourse is to try to interrogate and see, or rather, how the Communist Party of China has managed to become so powerful and to shape the economic policies and direction of China such that China, as it were, is currently a superpower. And then I do expect us to ask ourselves, or rather to pose a question upon ourselves: what do our political parties in Kenya need to do so that they can also do their role in respect of transforming our country, transforming the counties through the economic policies that they envision and which therefore are expected to be enforced by the governments which these particular parties have put in place. I will start by giving a small explanation in respect of the rise of the Communist Party in China. As we may know, the Communist Party has had quite a number of leaders from the time of its formation in 1949, but principally I shall major on 3 leaders. That is Mao Zedong, who led the party in leadership in China from 1949 to 1976. Then there was Deng Xiaoping, that was from 1978 to 1992. And finally, the current General Secretary of the Communist Party, that is Xi Jinping, who has led it from 2013 to date. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important to interrogate the leadership structure of the Communist Party of China. And you'll realize that it's more of a command system of leadership with around 2,300 delegates. The structure is such that these 2,300 delegates elect what is called the Central Committee of around 200 members. This Central Committee will ultimately choose the Politburo. The Politburo constitutes of around 24 members. These 24 members of the Politburo shall form what is described as the Politburo Standing Committee of 7, and it is this committee that shall ultimately elect the party general secretary, who also becomes the president of the country. Now, the party general secretary is so critical in this particular country of China, and I want us to take a look at the economic policies as pursued by the Chinese government right now, and particularly the 2 most critical ones that have had major impact on the world's economic scene. And here I have in mind the South China Sea expansion, and the other project is the One Belt, One Road trade project. Now, you realize that these are major economic projects which have formed the core of the current President Xi Jinping's, economic policy. Basically, what are described as Xi Jinping's thoughts. You may realize, and I think that is important, that the South China Sea expansion project is quite contentious in that it involves China's claim to, the claim is based on historical maritime records, out of which China lays claim to around 3.5 million square kilometer tropical waterways. And these waterways stretch on countries like Hong Kong all the way to Borneo. And it is said that, these are replete with the sea, they're replete with the fisheries and fossil fuel reserves, so that at first hand you do realize and note the economic impact that would accrue if China is to succeed in this expansion. Yeah, I would also want you to take a look at the One Belt, One Road trade project. Now, this is a major infrastructural project in which to date China has invested around $1 trillion, spanning around 78 countries and major economic corridors. Yeah, and what is the purpose? The object of this project is to open routes, trade routes, and therefore markets for Chinese goods. Yeah, in a sense, what I'm saying is that these two major projects, fronted by the Communist Party, led by the current General Secretary, yeah, these two major projects form part and parcel of the fountain of what has made China what it is today. They form part of the fountain of, what has made China the superpower, economic superpower that we know it to be today. You therefore realize that, in a sense, if you want to know what the Communist Party of China stands for, if you want to know what the economic policy of the CPC in China is, then what do you need to do? Simply look at the manifestation in terms of the Chinese dominance throughout the world today. On that basis, I would therefore want to come back to our political parties. Yeah? Because as you all know, in the Kenyan context, for example, governments are formed by political parties. As it stands now, the national government in Kenya was formed by the Jubilee coalition. On the other hand, the 46 county governments are formed by different political parties. So that if we use the context of China, the issue would be that if I want to know what a particular political party stands for, then all I need to see, all I need to look through is the policies that are put across and implemented by the governments that are formed by these political parties, either at the national level or alternatively at the county level. And ladies and gentlemen, in our context of Kenya, you will agree with me that the Chinese story would not replicate in Kenya, yeah? Except, of course, in very few instances. Yeah? Most of our parties would have very good manifestos, very good economic policies. But when it comes to implementation, so that we see the reflection of the same in the ground, then we realize that there is a gap. There is a major gap. It is this gap, it is this disconnect that I think we need to address, so that we ask ourselves, how can this be sorted out? I would start by saying, because you see, we are using the example of China, that in respect of this particular country, there is something that was done by the founding father of that nation, that is Chairman Mao. And what did he do? He came up with something that was described as a cultural revolution, of the cultural revolution of, I think there's something called cultural revolution. Yeah, and in a sense, the sense of this cultural revolution is that it more or less tuned the mindset of the people, the mindset of the workers, the mindset of the entire structure of China, led by the political party that we are calling the CPC, in tune to the codes, the philosophies, the theories that underpinned and guided the revolution that he led. It was such that, and that is critical, that persons that fell within the context of the leadership structure of the CPC party had to be committed to the ideas. Yeah, they had to look into it that in whatever you do, in whatever docket that you are, in whatever office that you are, your major concern, your major interest is to ensure that the ideology and the policies of the CPC party are implemented to the letter. Yeah. And it is this cultural revolution, and which was transferred into the membership of the CPC, that I dare say has been instrumental in making the CPC and therefore China into what it is today in terms of economic dominance. Ladies and gentlemen, it will be important to note that the CPC only constitutes, the membership of the CPC only constitutes around 7% of the population of China. But membership to the party is after a rigorous process. You have to do an application, yeah? And it has to be, you have to be vouched. It has to be established that you understand the ideologies and the theories of the party. In fact, to be accepted as a member, the process will take around 1 year. It's not just a question of making an application and paying for the membership card. So that by the time someone becomes a member of the CPC, he is someone who is committed to the ideals of this particular organization. It is also important to note that for someone to rise within the structure of China, socially, politically, economically, membership to the CPC is really key. Of course, there are also consequences in the event of disloyalty. Yeah, then you have to give a formal apology, and you may also be detained. It is that draconian, and it doesn't matter your status in the society. So this has brought some sort of order and seriousness in respect of how party officials, party members who are in various cadre in terms of leadership of the society have implemented and seen to it that the philosophies of the CPC party are implemented to the letter. Now, the question is, in the context of our country, Kenya, in the context of Africa, what would we do so that we have political parties whose manifestos, and I would dare say manifestos, are always good? What would we do to ensure that the manifestos and the theories of our political parties are implemented to the letter, so that when someone stands up, you come to Kisumu County, then you'd say, yes, that is ODM government working. You go to Kakamega, yes, that is ODM government working. You go to, let's say, Nairobi, you say, okay, that is Jubilee, so that there's that, so that there's a sense in which the party creed, the party theories, the party ideals can be seen to be made practice through the government that they establish in whatsoever structure of society. What is it that we need to do? My first take is that it would be important that our political parties carry out regular trainings of their membership so that they understand the ideologies, the theories, yeah, and the principles that underlie the formation of these particular parties. I think this would be important if they are done regularly so that party members who perchance have got opportunity to serve within the civil service, yeah, their service must be pegged. Their service must bear in mind the fact that the object is for them to promote, for them to, bring out what their political party stands for, such that if you perform well, if you perform as per the expectation of our manifesto as a party, then in a sense what you are doing is that you are selling your political party. I think civil servants who work within dockets in governments must be made to know that whatever you do in the course of your work, the core object should be to ensure that in the end of the day, you manifest, you promote the ideals and ideologies of the party that have formed the government at that particular level, be it at the national level or at the county government level. I also want to believe that it would be important if our political parties intensify the process of recruitment of membership. And in this sense, I mean who falls from within the bracket of youth, and especially the intelligent, the people who will be in a position to contribute positive ideas, because this shall in a sense be like they are like the seed that shall germinate and shall form the basis of the future of the party. So we need to invest in our youth. Yeah, as a party, let us ensure that within our cadre we also have youth, yeah, who are aggressive, knowledgeable, as they are important, at least insofar as the future of the party is concerned. I also think it is critical that sponsoring of candidates to positions of leadership must be looked into thoroughly by our political parties. Yeah? It is important that our parties ensure that those that are sponsored to positions of leadership must be they who have demonstrated commitment, have demonstrated a grasp of what the party stands for. Yeah? Are they in tune and in sync with the philosophy and the ideology of the party? I think that is very important, so that when in position of leadership, such persons shall then be the ones who shall be carrying the banner, and they shall be the reflection of what the party actually stands for. I also think that when it comes to measuring, performance by those that have been vested with leadership positions, those that have been sponsored by the party, I think it would be important that the core criterion to be to what extent has this particular person who has been vested with a leadership position to what extent has he adhered, or to what extent has he demonstrated implementation of the party policies, implementation of the party ideology, be it in terms of the economy, yeah. For example, what does the ODM party stand for? Yeah. What is the ODM party position in terms of economic development? Yeah. Is that what has been reflected when it comes to, you know, the ODM government in the various counties? To what extent can it be said that this particular governor has deviated from the policy of the party? And I think that the party must then come in to sanction such leaders who may have deviated from that particular path. I also think that when it comes to the legislature, yeah, and here I have in mind the party members that have been sponsored to the Senate, the Parliament, and to the County Assembly, that is the MCAs, then I think that it would be key that the standard measures in terms of performance for these particular legislators ought to be to what extent have these persons crafted motions and even bills that have in one way or another contributed towards the implementation of the political party's manifesto, the political party's ideology, and the political party's principles. On the aspect of nomination of party candidates for electoral seats, I know this is a very touchy area, especially given the experience that we have had in Kenya in the last elections, where in most instances it is said, or it has turned out, that the process is shambolic, either because the parties lacked the financial capacity to hold credible primary elections, or maybe the technical capacity, yeah. And my take then would be that political parties in Kenya ought to divest from the normal protocol of holding party primaries, which in the end of the day turn out to be a sham, and instead concentrate more in direct nominations, that is, from qualified applicants who then have to go through major vetting, yeah, by the party to establish that they are committed to the party creed, yeah. And I think this is important because, one, as has been demonstrated through past experience, no party in Kenya has ever had that financial capacity to hold credible primary elections, yeah. Such that, on the flip side, in fact, I would recommend that if a party has to hold such direct elections, yeah, primaries, I mean, then you'd rather engage the IEBC, and of course that also comes up with its financial implications, yeah. Of course, there's also the question of who is a party member for purposes of holding such party primaries, yeah, because party primaries ought to be restricted to party members. So that I would ask the question in the context of our local scenario: is it really true that persons that participate in our primaries are necessarily party members? How do we vet those party members? Yeah, are they party members that know the ideology of the party before voting for a particular candidate? Or is it such that when it comes to primaries, I can simply apply and be a member of Jubilee or name it, and after that I engage in the exercise, though in a sense maybe I'm a member of the ODM party, I do honestly believe that as it stands, it is not practical for political parties in Kenya to hold primaries, and especially I have in mind the major political parties such as the Orange Democratic Movement. And I think that the best way to go would be for these parties, after having done what I said at first, which is carrying out a thorough engineering of its membership in terms of understanding the ideology, the policies, and what the party stands for, then it is that system which should then be in a position to vet its members who are interested in applying to be considered for nomination. It is then that you can be sure that you will choose a person that really stands for the creed of that particular party. Of course, it's also important to note that holding primaries, which in the end of the day turn out to be a sham, act as a major dent not only on the image of the political party, but also in the spirit of the membership, yeah, such that we would rather have that process where you handpick through the internal system a person that you believe stands by the creed of the party, than have a person through a shambolic process, which by the time we go to elections also not only disenfranchises but also causes so many of the party membership who feel dissatisfied with the process to lose the energy and the oomph that they need, and which is so critical approaching a general election. Ladies and gentlemen, those are questions and issues that I have posed. Those are proposals that I have made. Yeah, they are proposals that have worked. For example, I gave the example of the CPC and its command structure, where leadership is decided strictly by the party based on confirmation, serious watching, serious analysis, and understanding that the person that has been given a particular slot stands for the creed of the party. And I think it has worked for China. Yeah, it has worked for the CPC. The CPC is where it is today because of the nature of its leadership, because of the spirit of commitment to the creed, to the philosophy, to the principles that formed this particular party. The commitment is such that they that have been vested with leadership positions in government have got no option but to inculcate those principles in their offices, so that when people see the result of their work, then they know that that is the CPC party of China working. My take is that we must change the formula of determining not just the leadership within our parties, the leadership within the various structures of government, but that we must also ensure that we change the mindset of these particular persons that have been vested with that authority to lead, so that whatsoever position that you have of leadership, take it that you are doing it because of the party that sponsored you, and you must ensure that you deliver as per the creed, the theory, the principles, the manifesto of that particular party. Thank you.